Hello, and welcome to the first Node Talk of EBACE 2019. My name is Clarke, and what I care about is data and pricing. So we're going to talk through those things today. Here you go. So I think we're at an interesting time in kind of human, macro life cycles, as it were. If we look back at this, basic representation of human society over time, you can see kind of the major periods of human life. So, first big change that went on in human society was the change to the agricultural society. So, we went from being hunter-gatherers and we moved into being able to actually farm. You think back to what happened in the past, you had kind of ancient Egyptians on the Nile who really mastered this. And what did that enable them to do? Well, then they could rule for thousands of years and they could build pyramids and all sorts of really cool stuff. That lasted for a long, long time. The next big thing that really happened was that we moved into an industrial society. So you've got to think, cotton mills, that sort of thing, steel. And once again, there was this transformation. And you think about it on kind of a country level again. The countries which mastered this first had an advantage, economic advantage, which is still pretty live to this day. So that was the second big one. The next one is the one which is really fascinating and is we're kind of at the start of at the moment. And that is the data-first society. So you can see here, that robot is pretty cool. Data society as a whole obviously goes back, a little bit of time. We went to the moon with a certain amount of computing. But the data-first society we're really getting into now. And I think some of the things that you think about with data, you kind of think, oh, it's still in the future. But it's really, really not. It's happening right now. If you think about self-driving cars, that used to be something that we thought about. There are cars self-driving now at the moment around streets. If you think about music you listen to, it's no longer people plug in a CD and you listen to music there. It's actually data being used to craft that playlist that you're going to listen to with machine learning algorithms. So it's very much a thing which is happening today. When we think about private aviation in this space, I think you could say that private aviation is, at the very, very start of that data-first society. Compared to other industries, probably still quite a long way behind. So what can you do to get to that kind of data-driven world? I think the first thing you can do is make sure that you have the data in the first place. So many organizations will have the data, which is fantastic, but then you need to be able to use it. You have this siloed information in different places. Maybe you have customer data in one place and you have pricing information in another place. If you can bring it together in a data warehouse, that's going to enable you to actually use that to really make decisions. We did that in Avanode Group and it's been really successful and we've been able to do a lot of things since then because of that. The next thing you can do is layer on top of that a kind of a basic business intelligence software. So Avanode, we use Power BI. There's lots of other business intelligence softwares out there. And that layers on top of the data warehouse and extracts information in order that everyone can use it. So no longer is the data in the world of the analyst, people like me, it's in the world of everyone. It kind of democratizes the data. So you can see here kind of basic Avanode stuff that we have available for everyone. They can look at this on their phone, on the app, and see information. Here you've got the number of requests that are coming out of different American states every day. No surprise, California, Florida, the Northeast. The other thing we're doing with data is we're really using it to drive some of our product development. We don't just kind of think, oh, that'd be nice to build. We do surveys, we reach out to customers, use that data. Then we also look at the data from our own system, from our marketplace, and in Scalero too. And that really enables us to fuel our decisions about how we're going to develop the product going further. So it's very important. And then the last thing is, the fancy stuff, the self-driving cars, the kind of the AI that powers that. We're not doing any of that yet, but we have ideas about the kind of thing that we'd like to do in the future. So that's how you can kind of build the data and start using it. If we actually look at some of the data that we do see in Avanode, I think that's pretty interesting. So we're looking at here some demand indices. So where does the demand happen for a certain route, the London to Ibiza? I used to work in commercial aviation. It was known as the vomit comet, which is pretty horrible. I hope that's not the case in private aviation. So you can see here the seasonality for the London to Ibiza market, unsurprisingly, hugely in the summer. So what is it? It's a summer route. If we look at the demand per London airport, you can start to see some interesting things there as well. This is just based on the last year of data, but you can see which London airports are driving the most demand on that route. We looked at, we heard a lot about last summer about Luton night restrictions and things like that, but Luton is still seeing the vast majority of the requests out of London for that route, with Biggin Hill, Farnborough and Stansted finishing off on the end as well. So it's a Luton market still. And then finally, the aircraft category. This is what we see in the Avno marketplace about the most requested categories on this route. So it's still dominated by the light jet, the super light jet, pretty popular as well. And then there's actually a little spike around the heavy jets as well. So there are some bigger aircraft flying on that route. But primarily, it's a light jet market. So that's kind of the characteristics of London to Ibiza. If we look at the pricing information, we're going to look at just the summer pricing. You could see there the demand, so let's just focus in on the summer, because that's where the demand is. And here we're just looking at July for a period of 5 years, so the last 4 years, and then 2019 as well. What you can see here is the response prices that operators are sending in Avinode. So you can see the kind of reddy color is the median response price that people are sending back. You can see the blue color is the 10th percentile. You can think of that as kind of the minimum price that people are responding with for any given set of requests. And then you've got the top of the market too, that kind of grey-greeny color, that's the 90th percentile. So that's where the top end of responses are coming back as in euros. So you can see this spread between 9,000 and 17,000 euros and how that's changed over the past few summers. So for instance, if we go from July 2016 to July 2017, what the average operator was responding back with was flat. But there was a change in the spread of what they were responding back with. So we actually saw more cheaper responses at the very low end of the market. You can see how it changed into July 2018. Since July 2017, everything was coming back more expensive on this route. The low end of the market, the top end of the market, everything was more expensive. The median response price that we saw in July 2018 was 1,500 euros more than in July 2017. And then you can see some of the data from when we last looked at this, when I was putting this together a couple of weeks ago. I think it's also interesting to look at this in terms of the lead time, those days before departure that someone books. So you can see there, we've got on the left-hand side, that kind of lightest color, we've got when someone's booking 15 days or more before departure. Then you've got 5 to 14 days before departure. And then you've got within 4 days before departure, that kind of narrow window when maybe there's not too much availability left. And you can see the pricing strategy here. If you were to wait and keep that capacity ready to use, then potentially you could have got a much better yield for that flight. And you can see that that trend was true in July 2018, July 2017, but in July 2016, that didn't work on this route. It would have been tough. You would have actually made less than if you'd sold the capacity earlier. So I think this just opens up interesting questions around pricing strategies. We can see in kind of the show news around fixed pricing options. That's a clear pricing strategy that some people are going with. I think everyone needs to have a pricing strategy, so it's not, whoever picking up the phone is kind of, taking a good estimate of what the price could be. And the data can help you understand how you might position that. So that's all I had to say. The tsunami of data, private aviation maybe at the beginning of that journey, but kind of two things to say, what can your data tell you? And then also, what's your pricing strategy as well? So thank you for listening. My name is Clarke. If anyone has any questions or just wants to come speak to me about it later. Thank you.